Hi students, welcome back to the second part of this lesson, that is Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. Just to brush up or to have recourse to the previous part of the lesson, if you remember, we began the lesson giving a reference to the travelogues or travel writings, and I told you what is the meaning of the travelogue. I gave you the reference of Megasthenes Indica, Faye or Yuans or Alberuni or Marco Polo, how they went around the world, and they made a record of the different cultures or living standards or the standard of life, everything. And people used to refer when they wanted to know about it. Then we also studied how presently today, because of the technological development, how we have different means like Google Maps, or we have got TV channels like Discovery Channel, where we come to know about different places, different countries in the globe, whichever part, whether it is even to the South Pole or to the North Pole, we come to know we have almost a kind of living experience, a first-hand experience. Okay, then we began with our lesson with the Japanese manners. Especially, they are a well-mannered, well-behaved people. And we also studied that since it is overcrowded, there is no place there, courtesy, it stands as a substitute for privacy. So it's very important that courtesy, or people respect the other person by their manner of courtesy. Being very courteous, they respect the other person. That's how they manage even to have a private, most confidential business talk, business transaction in a crowded place. Afterwards, we studied their mania for bowing. That is, way of greeting the other person. And we came to know that the bowing is very quaint or very unusual one. It is not so easy. If we try, we may either bow too deep or we may not bow enough. It may be disrespect, and in the bargain we may end up doing something wrong. Whereas Japanese do it perfectly. And we stopped the lesson when we came to actually bowing in the families. What is the rule in the family when it comes to bow? Okay, fine. So let us study. The family rule says, what is that? It says that in a family, the wife bows to her husband, the child bows to his father or her father, younger brothers to elder brothers, the sister bows to all brothers of whatever age. Okay, so it's a very, very strange rule is there. What is that? The wife bows to her husband. I told you already in my previous lesson, it is not that the husband is greater than the wife. Both of them are equal. I said they complement each other. Whatever it is, but it's a cultural practice there that the wife bows to her husband. Second, the child bows to her father. Very good. We do it here as well. The child bows to her father. Maybe in India or in our places, as we get up in the morning, we go and touch the feet of our parents. It's a mark of respect. Whereas in Japan, it is just bowing. Younger ones bow to the older ones or elder ones, again paying respect to the elders. But see this, sister bows to all, notwithstanding what age you belong to, whether you have an elder brother or a younger brother, the sister has to bow to all. Well, I cannot question why it is, but it is a practice. It's a practice there. Hence, there is one example here. He says, I saw babies carried in Japanese style on their mothers' backs in clever little saddles, and whenever mother bowed, baby bowed too, somewhat condescendingly from his majestic height. Now, I'm sure you have seen the northeast side of our country, Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, where you have this tea estate. There, mothers, when they go to tea estate to work, to pluck the tea leaves, they also carry their small children, babies, on their backs. And as if, there is a quiver-like thing or a box where they put their child, or they tie it with a cloth. Now what happens? When the mother bows, automatically even the child bows. And the author calls it, George Mikes calls it as condescend. Condescending means from your position you come down, condescend, bend down. From your higher position you bow. Now the child is when the back of his mother, it's actually on a higher position. But from there, when the mother bows, even the child bows. So it is called coming down from your position. So what is the meaning here? That the child or the baby picks up, learns this art of bowing right from the infancy, So from the childhood, the child knows how to bow. See where it has picked up this particular art. That's why it is said, family is the first school and mother is the first teacher. So here the mothers teach their babies, their children, when they are quite young, the art of bowing to the elders. Well, then it is said, Japanese stores employ bowing girls who stand at the top of the escalators and whose only duty is to bow deeply and deferentially to all and sundry. The Japanese equivalent of our page boys who turn revolving doors for us. Now, the first slide here you find a Japanese girl. Maybe she's at the door, at the entrance of a shopping mall or something like that, where when everyone enters or when each one enters, she reverentially bows to them, she welcomes them. You may not find this setup in our place here, but when you go to cities or some of the restaurants, big restaurants, you will find a page, a servant waiting at the door. So the moment you come, he would open the door for you and give you a respectful bow. Or you may say namaskar, or you may say welcome. So similarly in Japanese, they have got bowing girls who are at the shops and shopping malls, and they pay respect to the customers when they enter by giving them reverential, respectful bow. And remember, it is said that differentially she bows, meaning to say to higher position people different kind of bow, and for ordinary people different kind of bow they give. In other words, what the author wants to tell us is that the Japanese system of bowing is very quaint or very unusual and really difficult, but for them it is not at all difficult. Let's continue. He says, then another word he used here, to all and sundry. All and sundry is an idiomatic expression. It is called an idiom. All and sundry means everybody, without excluding anybody. It is inclusive, all and sundry. For example, we say, well, the sun shines on all and sundry. It rains for all and sundry. The government rules are for all and sundry. Okay, see, idiomatic, we will study it later in the grammar section, but the idioms, their meaning is different when it is used, and we should learn to use them. It embellishes our language, it decorates our language. So it's very important to learn the idiomatic expressions. So remember, all and sundry means for all. Okay. On the famous and fast Tokaido line between Tokyo and Osaka, two conductors enter the carriage in a slightly theatrical scene. They march to the middle of the coach, bow ceremoniously in both directions, and then start checking the tickets. Very interesting. Here it is said, what about trains, railways? Okay, so here a reference is given, that is Tokyo and Osaka. Okay, Tokaido line between Tokyo and Osaka. Tokyo and Osaka, two cities in Japan. So there is a train, there is a railway line, and it is called Tokaido line. So how do these ticket checkers in the train, how do they bow? Should they, do they, or don't they? It is said they do. What do? They enter a railway bogie, a railway coach, they go to the center, and both of them bow respectfully to the commuters, to the people there, those who are traveling, those who are there inside the train passengers. And once they bow, then they go to each of the passengers, and then they begin to check the ticket. You see how beautifully they do it. We travel by buses here, and we know how a conductor has to wade through the people to collect the ticket. Sometimes he may has to stamp someone, or people don't move, he has to shout But chapel is not like that. Okay, respectfully they go. They first pay the respect, they bow, and then they begin to check the tickets. In one of the parts of Nara, I met a deer. I bought a pack of food for him. He came up to me, looked into my eyes, and bowed deeply. It was no chance gesture. It was a proper and courteous bow. Perhaps deers are more imitative than I knew. Perhaps if they see people bowing all the time, they get into the habit too. Perhaps it is something genetic and it is in the blood of Japanese deer. I do not know. But I do know that the deer bowed to me, then jumped at me and snatched the little food bag from my hand. Now, the author, George Mikes, gives one incident. What is that? Nara is a place. He says one day as he was going on the, maybe on the footpath, he says there was a deer. And the author had a biscuit packet in his hand. And he says he stood in front of the deer and offered him a biscuit. Or he stood there and the deer bowed to him. The deer bowed to him. Remember, a while ago, the previous unit we said this bowing is infectious. Now the author says it is infectious not only to human beings, even to the animals. Or rather, he says even animals, they know how to bow. Now he says whether it is by chance or what, the author is not able to tell us. But he says the author bowed. This particular slide here shows us that how a deer bows to a man. I have a TikTok video to show to show us how exactly this happened. It may be a TikTok video, but you can see and you can enjoy what. Just see this. Yeah. Once again, I will play it for you. Okay. So, and you see there, even the deer bows to the person and then takes the biscuit that is offered to isn't it? It looks very strange. Maybe in our places we have got these bulls or oxen, basava, what we call. In fact, in Kannada we say hauda basava. It shakes its head and says hauda. Alva basava, it shakes its head and says alla. Well, that is how much scientific it is. I do not want to discuss. But here, George Mikes speaks about that deer bowing, and we saw how it happened. Once again, I can play this. Okay, and he says once it bowed, then it snatched the biscuit packet and escaped from the place. Isn't it very funny that Japanese deers also are very, very well-behaved and well-mannered animals. Human being is also an animal. Only thing is that human being claims to be a reasoning animal, a logical person. Sometimes we do not, and that is a sad part of it, where we need to educate ourselves more how to behave with others. In this too, the deer was a true Japanese. Okay, and again referring to this incident, George Mike says this particular deer that he met in Nara is that place, was true Japanese. You can often see people bowing to each other with ceremonious serenity at bus stops. Okay, further he says that people bow ceremoniously. Ceremoniously means as if it's kind of a religious ceremony, so much respect and so much of systematic way they do it. He says ceremoniously, even in bus stops, very systematically they bow. Even in a hurry, if they meet someone, they do not go, they do not pass by without bowing to the person. Okay, as soon as the bus arrives, the bowing gentlemen are transformed into savages. They push each other aside, tread on each other's toes, and shove their elbows into each other's stomachs. Okay, so this particular aspect of bowing ends on a very sad note, or maybe we can identify ourselves very much in these 2 or 3 lines. What is that? He says, so systematically they bow to each other even in a bus stop, but when the bus arrives, what happens? He says, but as soon as the bus arrives, the bowing gentlemen are transformed into savages, meaning to say you behave like animals. They push each other aside, tread on each other's toes, and shove their elbows into each other's stomachs. So he says, when the bus arrives, for the sake of getting a seat, people just don't bother anything. They just go and attack, or rather they go and occupy the bus seats, hence they run. I'm sure we are very familiar with this particular scenario in our bus stands. When a bus comes, how do we run? From outside the bus, we throw the kerchiefs or books or papers and we reserve our seats. And if there is a rush, we know how we enter through the door. We don't even allow the people to get down alight from the bus. Maybe the scene is very pathetic in Bombay trains, local trains. You need not get into the train. You just wait at the door and you are pushed inside the train. And you need not alight from the train. You wait at the door and you are just pushed onto the platform. And there is no system or discipline in our behavior. And somewhere we match Japan as well. He says, when the bus arrives, all these manners disappear and people simply run and behave like savages, behave like animals. That's what he says. Good, we continue. Now, there is another aspect, the last item from Japanese manners he speaks about is about eating or drinking soup. Now, I said eating soup, or even it is mentioned there, eating soup. Now, soup is a kind of liquid. How can I eat something that is liquidified? Or a liquid can be only drunk. You can drink a soup. Can you eat soup? I'm sure you have seen one advertisement. I think Maggi noodles or something like that. Okay. So similarly here, he said eating soup. Let's see why it is eating soup and not drinking soup. Drinking soup. I'm sure you must have tasted or had soup. And when we have soup, we have got noodles in that. We have got different items put into that, added to that. And sometimes we need to take a soup ball and a spoon and we need to eat it also for that matter. Anyhow, let's see what does George Mikes say. Eating soup has more dangers than almost everything else. Okay, bowing, he called it as quaint, strange one, unusual. Now, what does he call this eating soup? He says eating soup is more danger. It has got more dangers. When eating soup, you must make a fearful noise. Can you see this first slide here? Well, this person is trying to eat the soup. Now, look at his face here. He is not posing for a selfie. Okay? He is not posing for a selfie. He is in fact, he is trying to eat the soup. Now, when you eat the soup, you have to make a fearful noise. You can make out this noise, okay? It is a sign of appreciation. It's a sign of appreciation. Now, usually we are taught certain table manners. And one of the table manners is that when you eat, do not make noise. Especially when you eat, when you bite, okay? You are not supposed to make a noise, especially when you are on a table, because it disturbs the other person. It is not a good manner. This is one of the table manners. Now here in Japan, when you eat the soup, you have to make that fearful noise. What is that? That is of eating soup. And it is said this noise is a sign of appreciation, meaning to say, if you do not make noise, the soup is not supposed to be tasty. Since the soup is not good, you are not making any soup. You must have seen in our villages, elderly people, they sip tea. See, and how do they sip it? When they sip it, they make a noise. They make a noise, okay? And you can imagine, they enjoy it. They enjoy it. Similarly in Japan, while eating or drinking soup, you have to make this noise. It is said, if you don't, your hostess will think, what an ill-mannered lout. So, suppose you are given a bowl of soup and quietly you have it, you eat it or you drink it. You are not making any noise. What is the conclusion? The person who has invited you for lunch or for a party would think that you are an ill-mannered lout, meaning to say you are mannerless. You do not have any manners. You do not have table etiquettes. That is what your host will think. But see the other way about. But if you do the noise, she will think not reasonably well brought up European. Suppose you make a noise, they say this person doesn't know how to behave in public. You are not well brought up. Table manners are not taught. Isn't it very strange? You remember earlier I said bowing. In America there was a rule. What is that? If you meet in a section and who has to go, you cannot go until the other one goes. This person cannot go until the opposite person goes. Now similarly here, make a noise or not to make a noise. In both ways you are into soup. You understand? That's another idiom. When you say I am in soup, means I am in a deep problem. Now you see here you need to make a noise, because making noise is a sign of appreciation. If you make a noise, your host will think you are not well brought up. Should you or should you not? Isn't it problematic? And he says, well, no reasonably well brought up European makes such disgusting noises when eating soup. But there is a thumb rule. What is the rule says? If you are well brought up, you do not make the noise. Only if you are ill-mannered loud, you make noise. Now what to do? Should you make the noise or should you not make the noise? He must be an ill-mannered loud. Anyhow, I do not know how to solve this problem, whether to make the noise or not to make the noise. I prefer not to go to Japan if that is the case. But if at all you land up, then be careful whether to make the noise or not to make the noise. Best thing may be not to take the soup at all. Okay. With this, we end this part of Japan. Or rather, now we start a detour from Japan. Now we take a return flight from Japan and we come back. Okay, so just to sum up, remember we said Japanese people are well-mannered people. Since it's a crowded place, their courtesy, remember this word, C-O-U-R-T-E-S-Y, courtesy, when it is a substitute for privacy. So it's very important that you are very courteous in your dealing. Secondly, we studied about their mania for bowing, how each one bows to the other person. The common rule is that the elder one or the younger one has to bow to the elder one. Lower position person has to bow to the higher position person. Hence, a lower person would bow deeper and longer, and higher position person in age or position would bow but little lesser than the other person. But in a family, wife has to bow to the husband, and brother has to bow to this one, elder one, sister has to bow to the both, brother, younger or elder, and the rule continues. Then we also saw how even ticket checking people, how do they bow to the people, the passengers in the train. Then we came across an incident in Nara, how even a deer would buff. Okay. Then we also came to know a sad part of it, that is, though they buff, but when the public bus arrives, transport bus arrives, how they forget to be human beings, they become savages and they tramp on everybody to occupy the bus seats. And finally, we came to the aspect of soup, where making noise is really quaint, there a problematic one. That's why the author says the dangerous practice there. If you make noise, then you are considered an ill-mannered lout. If you do not make, then you are considered as if you do not know the manners, and it's a sign of appreciation as well. So whoever goes there falls, he faces a dichotomy, a kind of confusion there. We call it a kind of dharma sankata in Kannada. Whether to do it or not to do it, you are in a big problem. So I cannot find solution for this problem. Only thing I can do is take you to Brazil. Okay. Now let's go to Brazil. Very interesting details we have got about Brazil. Okay. Now what do we discuss in Brazil? Not much. Here we discuss only the traffic aspect in Brazil. From Japan we studied about their manners, their bowing system and eating soup, but about Brazil we will go there and we will study only the traffic aspect. Nobody hurries in Brazil. There is no hurry in Brazil. We say aram se. Okay, nobody hurries there. Okay, they have a culture of relaxing kind thing. It does not really matter whether you reach your destination an hour too soon, a day late, or not at all. Not at all. I think some of us, in here are of this nature. We come very aram se. 8:45 is the class, but we come 9 o'clock. We have no problem. We have no problem. I think we have got some Brazilian genes within us. That's how we behave in this way. But here it is said, well, they don't matter, because for them relaxation is very, very important. So sometimes they reach 1 hour soon, 1 hour late, even not at all. They are not bothered. The grey pavements in the streets of Copacabana are often decorated with beautiful black mosaics, a unique type of decoration. Throughout the slides here you will find these are their pavements. Pavements is the way to walk by the side of the road. Now see, all these pavements you find here, all the 3 slides, they are well decorated with black mosaic. Mosaic is, different things are put together. We call it as mosaic. Okay, so here you find different colors, so different pieces of tiles are put together, and we have mosaic. Olden days we used to have mosaic tiles. Today we have got petrified tiles, or we have got different types of granite stones and all we use at home. But otherwise, first we used to have mud floor, then we got cement floor, concrete one, then we went for mosaic, and now we have got tiled roof. And recently we have got even some kind of animated tiles, where when you step on that you can get different scenes, like a water pond or a sky or something like that. Different things, you must have come across them. Whatever it is, in Japan all the pavements are well decorated. Okay, then only a people alive to beauty in their surroundings and who have a plenty of time for contemplation during their meditative ambulatory exercises would take the trouble to decorate the pavements they walk on. Now George Mikes comes to a conclusion that who can decorate the pavements? Who can decorate the path in this way? Only those people who have got enough and more time. Okay, when they go for meditative and ambulatory exercise. Ambulatory exercise means for your exercise when you go for morning walk or evening walk. Okay, and those who are very aware, very much alive to the sense of beauty. We call it as aesthetic sense. Okay, aesthetic sense. So they are very much aware. We can be very aesthetic or non-aesthetic. What do I mean? An aesthetic person keeps everything clean, everything beautiful, well arranged. The clothes are kept systematically at home with hangers. They are hanged, or beautiful garden in front of the house. Even though there is no place, flower pots, the sense of beauty, he dresses well. But one who doesn't have this aesthetic sense of beauty, he is a haphazard. There is no order in his life. We take off the clothes and just bungle it and throw it away. And simply the things are thrown everywhere. Not even bed is made properly. You see the difference? This is what we have to learn. He said these people are very beauty conscious. Now beauty conscious not about their physical beauty, even the surroundings. Environment also, they keep it very clean. That's why all these slides would show us how beautifully the places are kept. I wish we get this sense even in our locality here. But always there is a problem. What is that? However, as soon as these easygoing, leisurely characters get a steering wheel in their hands, no speed is fast enough for them. You would then be inclined to believe that gaining a tenth of a second is a matter of grave importance for all of them all the time. Now there is a problem. Though these people do not hurry, they are a leisurely type people, aram se kind of people, but if they get a steering wheel, meaning to say when they are on their vehicle, no speed is enough for them. Speedometer not there at all. Gaining 1/10 of a speed is paramount importance, meaning to say for them speed matters. We say speed kills, but for them speed matters. Speed is very, very important. Very, very important. The moment they get a steering wheel, the steering wheel in their hand, simply they love to speed up. They love to speed up. This is a strange thing. What is that? In their usual behavior, they are a leisurely type of people who do not hurry at all. But with regard to vehicle, well, you don't ask. We say pucho mat. That kind of deadly speed they follow. Motor cars are extremely expensive in Brazil. But remember, the author says in Brazil, motor cars are very, very expensive. What is the reason? Import duties being crippling and murderous. Meaning to say, when you import a vehicle, the import duty is too much. Too much, okay? We know. Exim, we say export and import. So here, that import duty is very, very high. Very, very high. Hence, motor cars are very expensive. Hence, you need not think that motor cars are very less expensive. That's why everybody has got a motor vehicle and hence he drives fast. No, that is not the case. Motor cars are very expensive. In spite of that, people speed up. Then, only a few other poorer South American states are in a worse position in this respect. Complaints are universal. Hardly anyone can afford a car. Yet, this only means that the number of motor vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds. Okay, now he says, well, South American countries are supposed, or at least they are considered poor countries. Okay, may not be all, but some of the South American countries are considered poor countries. But still, they have vehicles. And it is said, yet this only means that the number of motor vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds is another idiom. Leaps and bounds means, we say galloping. Okay. Usually there is no particular setup type for growing. It leaps and leap means jump. So it is not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see, from each digit there is only one difference. 1 to 2, 1, 2 to 3, 1. But here 1, 5, 7, 9, 14 leaps and bounds. It jumps and goes. Okay. See, when I run there is a rhythm. Okay. But a person when he jumps, there is no rhythm. The distance can different. So it says leaps and bounds. So we say, for example, the petrol rates are going high by leaps and bounds. It's not that every day 1 rupee is increased. Today 1 rupee, tomorrow it can be 3, day after tomorrow it can be 4 rupees, or again it can be 1 rupee difference. So it changes in leaps and bounds. We say when things are beyond measurement, we say leaps and bounds. Population in India is grown by leaps and bounds. Population in India is grown by leaps and bounds. Okay, accidents every day, they increase in leaps and bounds. You can't say today 10 and tomorrow there will be another 10. Tomorrow it can be 30 also. For example, even the corona infection rate is also increasing by leaps and bounds. You can imagine in the month of March it was just 1, 2, 10 and today we have reached in lakhs. Almost as if cars were distributed free of charge to all and sundry. See, this idiom all and sundry has come again to everybody. Okay, so we have got two idioms here, leaps and bounds and all and sundry. All and sundry means for everybody. Or leaps and bounds when things increase in not proportionate manner, disproportionate manner, we say leaps and bounds. Thus, the pedestrian's life is becoming more hazardous every day. So you can imagine in Brazil, road accidents are numerous or innumerous. You can't even count the road accidents taking place in Brazil because the number of vehicles increase, and you can imagine when the number of vehicles increase and the speed also increases. So pedestrian is one who walks by the side of the road. Padachari we call it as pedestrian. His life becomes very hazardous. There is no guarantee when you go that you would come back. So dangerous it is to walk on the road or by the side of the road in Brazil. Okay. It is not that drivers do not care about the pedestrians. Okay. Now, here it is said, it is not that the drivers do not care about the pedestrians. Well, you need not come to a conclusion that drivers are careless. No, it is not that. The trouble is that they do care about them. They are in fact on the lookout for them. Now, here the author is, in a funny way is telling that the pedestrians always wait for the drivers always wait for the pedestrians to cross the road. Why? So that you can go and hit him. As soon as the driver notices the pedestrian step off the pavement, when he steps onto the road, he regards him as a fair game. He takes aim and accelerates. Okay, now we see how funny he says. Imagine a person is trying to cross the road, and he says, suppose a driver notices that somebody is trying to cross. He says, I have got a game today. So, like a hunter waits for the prey, Suppose he finds somebody moving there, he aims and he shoots. Similarly, in Brazil, George Mikes says, well, the moment a pedestrian from the pavement just gets down, gets onto the road, the driver thinks, I have got a game. What is the game? I need to speed up and go and hit him. You need not think negatively. Author is just explaining it in a funny way. Okay, and he says, the pedestrians has to jump, leap and run for dear life. Now the driver doesn't care. So pedestrian, one who crosses, has to jump, leap and run for dear life. If he has to save his life, he has to do that. We find this kind of people even in our places sometimes. When we drive fast, somewhere suddenly they jump and they escape and they go. He does not resent this in the least. Driver and pedestrian, hunter and prey, smile amicably at each other. I win today, you will win tomorrow, fair enough. Now, what happens? Imagine a pedestrian comes on the way and the driver gets angry. Nothing of that sort. Okay? The pedestrian thinks, today I escaped. And the driver thinks, let me see you tomorrow. Meaning to say, fair game. They say, nobody begins to scold the other person. Just imagine what happens in our place. Somebody is driving fast and suddenly you try to cross the road. You come in between. The driver stops and scolds you with embellished words. Okay? Some of the words which you don't even find in dictionary, you find they just come out like bullets. Like as if he's shooting, he begins to scold you in all the languages, beautiful words, inverted commas, possible. But in Brazil, it is not like that. Both of them smile at each other and they go. Why? The pedestrian says, I win today. And the driver thinks, come tomorrow, let us see. Well, don't take it in that way. Meaning to say, well, the life is like that there. Okay, each one looks after himself and he manages, nobody gets hurt. The war between drivers themselves is murderous, but good tempered. George Mike says, even the drivers, sometimes they race with each other. Meaning to say, in that speed, kind of overtaking. Okay, it's very murderous, he says. Very dangerous sometimes because the way they overtake the other person. They cut in, they overtake on both the sides, they force you to brake violently, commit all the most heinous crimes of the road and 20 times every hour. But they smile at you at the same time. There is no anger, no hostility, no mad putting. Now what is that? The drivers, they overtake from any side. It need not be that. Usual rule is overtake from the right side. He says they overtake from any side. Now imagine when it is only one-way road, you have to take the right side. But when it is a two-way, the rules are different. And when there are 4 or 5 lanes, according to the speed, you have to take up the lane that you want. Okay. Now here it is said, they do anything. Okay. But nobody gets angry. Nobody gets angry. Everything solves amicably, very beautifully. Each one goes by his way. All these things happen and they keep on happening and there is no problem. They smile at each other at the same time. There is no anger, no hostility, no mad hooting. What is that? Hooting of the horn. We say honking of the horn. Nothing of that sort. Nothing of that sort. Each one goes by. And this is a normal scene in Brazil, who says George Mikes. Now, let's go to one particular place in Japan. What is that? And it is called Avenida Presidenta Vargas. The Avenida Presidente Vargas is the worst place of all. Okay, remember this is the place in Brazil. And the name of the place is the Avenida Presidente Vargas or Vargas. Is the worst place of all, says George Mikes. You stand there trying to cross the road and contemplating truly the fascinating problem. Now in this particular circle, you have to cross the road. You have to cross and go to the other side. What is the problem? We know very well. The drivers go in a murderous speed. Very fast they go. So it is not so easy. Sometimes in the city you must have seen people trying to cross the road. They get in, they go 2 steps and they come back because a vehicle comes very in a speed. Second, they come back, again they go, again a vehicle comes and they are unable to cross. That's why we have got signals where the policemen make the vehicles to stop and make the people to cross. But in Avenida cycle, there is no circle, there is no signal. You have to wait to cross. You have to wait for an opportune time when the vehicles would be less and I would cross. But see the fun here. He says, you wait contemplating truly the fascinating problem. What is the fascinating problem? to cross the other side. But how can crawling traffic proceed at such terrifying speed? In other places, it is very slow traffic, the vehicle moves very slowly, but when it comes to Avenida Circle, the speed murderous. The speed is terrific. It is like supersonic jet, that fast they go. Hence you are unable to cross. But still you need to cross. What to do now? See this. As hour after hour passes, without a ray of hope of an auspicious crossing, you may witness a scene something like this. Now George Mikes want you to imagine a scene. What is that? You are waiting there to cross on to the other side, cross over to the other side. But he says, you wait for hours together thinking that one auspicious time, Shubha Gadige, one good time will come where vehicles would be less and I would cross over to the other side. But he says, such a time doesn't come at all. And what he says? He says, without a ray of hope of an auspicious crossing, you may witness a scene something like this. What is the scene? Imagine. A man on your side of Avenida Vergas suddenly catches sight of a friend of his on the other side and starts waving to him, at the same time looking completely mystified. Now he says, there is a scene like this. What is that? You are on the left side of the circle and you suddenly spot your friend on the other side, right side. And you begin to wave hands. Hi, I am here. The question is this, how can you have a friend on the other side? You see here, so you ask, how on earth did you get over there? So from the left side, you ask your friend, you shout out and you ask, by the way, tell me, how did you manage to go on to the other side? You know what is his reply? He shouts across, trying to make himself heard above the traffic. Now, the traffic is so thick there and hooting sound of the horns and the vehicles moving sound, but still he has to be heard. So he shouts. And what does he shout from the other side? It is the other fellow's turn to be surprised by this nailed question. He yells back, how? I was born on this side. Did you get the joke of it? Yeah, little difficult to understand. Imagine your name is Mr. A and you are on the left side of the road and you find your friend Mr. B on the other side. Be on the other side. He's your friend. So you say, my goodness, how did you try? Say, I am waiting for hours together crossover and how did you manage to go on to the other side? And what does your friend B reply from the other side? How? What the question are you asking? I was born this side only. Meaning to say, both of us became friends by trying to cross the road. Every day we come here and we try to cross the road and we have become friends by looking at each other. So you would remain on the left side, I would remain on the B side itself or right side itself. We can never cross. Why? The traffic is so thick. The traffic is so hard that you cannot cross, and hence friendship. Thank God they did not think of getting married. Otherwise, things would have been very difficult. In other words, what George Mikes wants to tell us is that traffic in Brazil is unimaginable. The speed of the people is just unimaginable. Whereas they are a kind of leisure loving people. They don't hurry, but with regard to their driving or when a steering wheel comes in their hand, well, nobody can control them. And the lesson abruptly ends here. So once again, let's come back from Brazil and come back to our own place here. Remember, what we learn from others, we need to practice. But remember, good things we need to practice and bad things we should not. So we should not cause a situation for the people here where one wants to cross onto the other side and there is a speed. Remember, speed always kills. Speed always kills. We need to learn the traffic rules. Certain places we have got yellow mark, certain places we have got zebra lines where people are allowed to cross. Yellow means we need to go very slow. All these things we have to cross and we need to respect. For that matter, when you go to European countries, there commuters are respected very much. Pedestrians are respected very much. When someone crosses, even a speeding vehicle stops and allows the person to cross. Unlike in our place where we think we are very great. The moment we sit on a car or a bike, we think no end of ourselves, and we don't care for the other person. Even when an elderly person, an aged person is trying to cross the road, we don't even bother. So let us learn from this Brazil traffic that we should not repeat the same thing here. We need to respect the people, and life is very important, and a meaningful living is also more important. So God has given us beautiful life. Let us make use of this life and make our living also very meaningful. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.